Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin of the Investor Connect. Today we're here with Richard May of Invest in Texas Initiative. Richard, thank you for joining us.
It's my honor. Thank you for having me.
So what was your background before investing in early stage companies?
My background is representing industries through trade associations. That's what Invest in Texas is a trade association representing startups and VCs and angels and any other type of investors. So my background, really from the investment point of view, was representing industry on Wall Street. So it was a very conservative space with dealing with public companies. Being in the VC and angel space, it's much more dynamic and actually, quite frankly, much more exciting. And so that's how I came to be executive director of Invest in Texas.
That's great. So what excites you right now? What do you find that gets you going?
Well, again, with Invest in Texas, we represent investors on one side and startups on the other side. So we're agnostic. So in regards to space, but one of the things that is exciting is what I see as green energy, but that is overcrowded. So there's a lot of push and pull there. Another thing that's interesting is this whole prop tech space. People are real excited about it, but it's such an elusive, almost a ghost of trying to find investors who are willing to take the chance. I know blockchain is really exciting, but that hasn't really done it for me in the last year. Otherwise, just from the top of my head, that's kind of what comes to mind.
Well, great. Well, certainly a lot's going on in that space as well. So you've seen a lot of investors invest in startups and a lot of startups go raise funding. So for the investors, what's your advice for them about investing in startups? What would you tell them before they write that first check?
Well, I've witnessed so many different startups and investors over the past year or so. I would highly recommend is investing in the people and their team first and foremost, and then where that value statement lies. I mean, does their project have a value out there in commerce in the world we live in, especially in regards to tomorrow? Today changes on an hourly basis, so you have to think in terms of tomorrow and next week. And so you have to, for some reason, know how to predict the future, but that's what successful VCs do. And so that would be my best advice.
And so for the startup raising funding, what would you coach them on?
What I've noticed in startups is they try to ask for the least amount they feel comfortable with, but it always gives them the least amount of time to succeed. So don't be shy to ask for 2 years worth of money to get your project up and running and profitable. I think startups tend to be a little scared of their own shadow.
Well, that's good advice. Give yourself some room and some runway to get the project further along. So what's your investment thesis for funding startups? What do you think the right formula is out there?
Well, the right formula, like I said earlier, is the team and the value statement. Also, being such a global economy, you want to know if this is going to fit in Canada, Venezuela, Brazil, or China. You have to understand the macro dynamics of your product. Some startups have such an esoteric niche that it either means they monopolize, which is great, and sometimes they just end up falling through the cracks. And then others they're so broad that they have too much competition or they've bitten off too much to chew. So it's that balance. Ultimately, it's the balance of all of those factors because there's so much in investing decisions that you have to have a certain balance of amount, time, what it is, what's its future, and how much geography, whether it's actual countries or number of people, is going to affect.
Cool. That makes sense as well. So let's talk about the state of investing in startups today. How is the industry evolving these days from your point of view?
Well, one of the things I noticed is I have to study investment spaces all over the world. On one hand, you have this philosophy of find it and spend it. It's quantity. That's what I've noticed out in California. It's just find it and spend it because we got money to burn and we're going to just go and spend it. And hopefully one of them will hit the unicorn and that will help satisfy those others that we didn't spend as much time on the due diligence. And the other, and what I've noticed here in Texas, is quality investing. You spend a lot more time doing the due diligence and then taking that attention to actually open up their wallets and say, here, Mr. Startup, we believe in you. Go off and make some money to help us make money. One of the things I also noticed, and I still haven't figured this out, because dealing with so many VCs into so many different spaces, is those VCs that concentrate only on one space, whether it's B2B, B2C, fintech, and that's it. They end up being experts in it. But then, as a lot of them have told me personally, they end up creating their own bubble that constricts them of their own innovation, which is the whole point of being a VC. And so my best advice is to understand that which is out of your space, to quite frankly, to better understand and or appreciate the one that you're in.
That's very good. So what are the challenges in the space that startups face today? When you see startups working, where do you think they struggle the most?
They struggle the most with trying to balance the big picture with the actual operations. And so that's what you got to make sure. When you're looking at a team, you got to make sure you got the one person who's dealing with the big picture, the macro thinking, the vision. Because you got to have the visionary, and then you got to have the ops guy. You got to have the guy who knows how to glue everything together and make sure it all moves forward on the spreadsheet or on the employment roll or whatever. But I have noticed if you get too many visionaries in that kitchen, it ends up being a great conversation, but nothing happens. If you get too many of the architects who all they do is build at the ops level, by the time it's up and running, they're already a year behind. And so it's important. My best advice is make sure you have that creative visionary, whether it's one person or a team, along with the hardcore ops people who know how to build that widget from ground up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's having an operational capability that supports the strategy you have in mind. If you have one without the other, it can be tough to build a business.
Yeah, I've noticed that from the successful ones, that seems to be the most confident combination, so to speak.
That's a good point. And so what about the investors? Where do you see the current opportunities for investors to pursue out there as far as different sectors or applications? What do you see as hot today?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's the battle of the extremes. I've got this one company talking with, and they're basically taking jet propulsion, these satellites, the size of like 2 school buses. And with the jet propulsion that cost, forgot what it was, $250 million. And they've taken it to where they can take a satellite the size of my office with a jet propulsion of $80 million, which is going to revolutionize, in the end, space travel, but also just space communications, just really revolutionizing the business of outer space, which is obviously the future of investment. But people don't realize it's not so distant future. Another hot thing is all in the medical, life science, biotechnology. You would be amazed at some of these gadgets these innovators and these startups have. And that's a huge area, especially with the healthcare disruption that either is going on or needs to be going on. Because if economics is there to fill a vacuum, that's where it is. You've got an aging population all over the world who, lack of a better term, are pissed off at the current economic system. And so they're looking for disruptors, innovators. And so I cannot tell you how many of those I get that come across my desk every day that make you go, oh, wow, we definitely have an interest in trying to matchmake with that startup. Then you get the other end. Like I've got this group, they do prop tech, but it's almost low tech, high tech, dealing with self-storage, where they basically take away, they automate the whole system, create a patented locking system to be able to fulfill these payments and able to renovate these old 1970s properties. Point being is they found this little known niche that's still stuck in the 1970s, have a great operations on one hand and some high tech, prop tech on the other, and they're able to just kind of swoop in and make a chunk of change in this very esoteric but very full of opportunities space.
Oh, it's like a great opportunity you have there. How best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Best way is just through my email. That's richard.may@iitexas.org. I'm here to match investors with startups and to help in any way possible. So that's what I'm here for.
All right. Well, great. Well, I appreciate having you on today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Well, I just want to thank you for everything you've done and you do. You're a great asset to the investment community here in Austin and Texas and throughout the world.
Well, appreciate that. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, all.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.